Morning television is supposed to be light, bubbly, and safe. Laughter over coffee, easy questions, and celebrity charm. But when Meghan Markle sat down on the This Morning sofa across from Allison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary, the atmosphere began to crack. What started as polite small talk unraveled into one of the most combative interviews the show had ever aired. Allison tried to keep her trademark warmth. Dermot attempted to calm the waters, but Meghan's sharp, arrogant tone pushed the studio into chaos. By the time it ended, Allison had lost her patience. Meghan had walked out, and This Morning had gone down in TV history. The familiar theme music faded out as the cameras swept across the This Morning set. Sunlight poured through the glass panels of the studio, bouncing off cheerful flowers arranged neatly on the coffee table. Allison Hammond's booming laugh kicked things off. Good morning, everyone. Today we have a very special guest, actress, activist, former Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. The studio audience erupted in polite applause. Meghan entered gracefully, her hair cascading in loose waves. She walked with a deliberate poise, her smile practiced, precise, almost too perfect. Allison leaned in for a hug, but Meghan extended only a hand. The moment was subtle, but the air in the studio shifted slightly. "Welcome to This Morning, Meghan," Dermot O'Leary said warmly, motioning toward the sofa. "Thank you," Meghan replied with a clipped politeness. "It's always interesting to be here." Allison laughed, brushing off the coolness. "We're so thrilled to have you. Now, you've been busy. New projects, appearances, lots of headlines. Tell us what's going on." Meghan's smile tightened. "What's going on is purpose. Focus. Using my voice to elevate the conversation beyond gossip. That's what matters." Her words landed with a pointed edge. Dermot nodded, smoothing it over. "And your upcoming project, can you share more with our viewers?" "Of course," Meghan said, leaning back with elegance. "It's about truth, about giving people a chance to tell their stories without being edited into caricatures, something I know quite a bit about." A faint chuckle escaped the audience, half supportive, half uncertain. Allison picked up on the tension but pushed forward with her trademark cheer. "That's wonderful. But of course, people are also curious. Life away from the UK, your new home, family balance. Are you happy?" Meghan's lips curved, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Happiness isn't a gift, Allison. It's a decision, and I've made mine." Polite applause followed. Dermot moved to the next card, but Allison wasn't finished. "And Prince Harry, you've both been working on separate projects. How is that partnership balancing out?" Meghan's eyes flicked to Allison, her tone sharpening. "You don't ask working men how they balance things with their wives, Allison. We both have schedules. We manage. It's not that complicated." The warmth in the studio cooled. Allison laughed nervously. "Fair enough. Fair enough, but people adore you both together, and they wonder how you juggle it all, especially with the kids." Meghan's voice grew firmer. "We juggle privately. My children aren't morning show material." A murmur rippled through the audience. Dermot jumped in quickly. "Let's pivot to the industry talk. There have been reports, fair or not, about negotiations for your Netflix series. Some say you asked for more money for the new season. What's your response?" Meghan gave a short, almost mocking laugh. "When a man demands fair value, he's a visionary. When a woman does, she's greedy. I don't chase pennies, Dermot. I command worth." A smattering of applause. Allison raised her brows, forcing another smile. "Strong answer. And of course, people can't forget your comments on the monarchy. You've called it outdated in the past. Do you still feel the same way?" Meghan crossed her legs, her posture shifting into something icier. "Tradition doesn't equal righteousness. Centuries of history don't erase harm. I don't romanticize institutions that wound." The audience grew quiet. Allison exhaled slowly, her cheerful facade flickering. Dermot adjusted his tie, trying to keep things steady. "Well," he said smoothly, "that's certainly something for people to think about." But everyone in the studio knew it. The tension had only just begun. The control room buzzed as producers exchanged nervous glances. They could already sense this was no ordinary interview. Dermot cleared his throat, determined to pull the segment back to calmer waters. "Let's dig into your creative side, Meghan," he said smoothly, shuffling his cards. "Viewers are fascinated by the storytelling in your projects. Do you see yourself moving more toward documentaries, scripted series, or perhaps writing?" Meghan gave him a measured smile. "I don't box myself into categories. I create. Whether that scares the industry or not is their problem." The words were coated in polish, but delivered with a condescension that hung in the air. Allison clapped her hands once too brightly. Well, that's very empowering, but of course, with storytelling comes responsibility. Some critics have said your work is, well, let's say heavily focused on your personal journey. Do you feel that's fair? Meghan tilted her head, her eyes narrowing just slightly. When men make films about their personal trauma, they win Oscars. When women do it, we're accused of narcissism. Perhaps the problem isn't my storytelling, Allison, but society's bias. The studio audience, usually filled with laughter and applause, sat uncomfortably quiet. Allison forced another chuckle, her hands clasped tightly together. I'm only asking what people wonder, Meghan. And speaking of personal journeys, she paused, her tone softening. How's Harry? He's such a beloved figure here in the UK. People miss him. Meghan's expression hardened. Harry doesn't belong to anyone, Allison. He's not a souvenir Britain gets to miss like a lost postcard. He's a man, my husband, and frankly, he's thriving without constant tabloid intrusion. The sharpness in her voice startled even Dermot, who quickly leaned forward. Of course, of course. And the children, Archie and Lilibet, he continued. Our viewers often ask how they're settling into life away from the palace spotlight. For the first time, Meghan's smile disappeared entirely. My children are not for public consumption. The world doesn't get to demand progress reports on them as though they're reality show contestants. Allison nodded, but her eyes flickered with growing unease. Of course, we respect that. Still, families at home watching often relate to seeing public figures balance parenting. It inspires them. Meghan let out a cold laugh. Then perhaps families at home should focus on their own children instead of obsessing over mine. The audience gasped softly. The temperature on set dropped a degree. Allison's usually unstoppable warmth faltered, and for the first time, her famous laugh didn't come. She sat straighter, lips pursed, eyes narrowing. Dermot raised his hand slightly, trying to cool the air. Let's talk industry again, shall we? Those Netflix reports. It's been said, purely reports, mind you, that you demanded a higher budget for the new season. Some suggest it was about money. Others say it was about creative control. Can you clarify? Meghan leaned back, crossing her arms. Clarify? I don't explain myself to rumor mills. Netflix knows my value. If the press is shocked that a woman dares to negotiate, that's their scandal, not mine. Allison's jaw tightened. But Meghan, isn't it fair to say those negotiations are what keeps your name in the headlines? People see you stepping away from the monarchy, yet still commanding global attention. Doesn't that contradict your desire for privacy? Meghan's tone dripped with disdain. Privacy doesn't mean silence, Allison. I didn't abdicate my humanity. I use my platform how I see fit. If people can't understand the difference, that's hardly my fault. A tense silence followed. Dermot shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing Allison's patience was wearing thin. She tried again, softer this time. But Meghan, surely you can see why the public might be confused. You've spoken often about wanting peace, yet you remain very much in the spotlight. Meghan gave her a pointed stare. Peace doesn't mean disappearing, it means creating boundaries. If the public struggles with that, perhaps it's because they're too used to women being silent and compliant. The audience murmured again, half in approval, half in disapproval. Allison's laugh finally returned, but it was brittle, strained. You've always had strong words for the monarchy, Meghan, she said. When you look back now, do you regret any of it? Meghan's voice grew colder. Regret? Number. The monarchy is a relic, an ornament polished for tourists while it crushes those within. I spoke the truth. I'll never apologize for that. The studio seemed to freeze. Allison's eyes widened just slightly, then she recovered with her usual warmth, but it was clear the mask was cracking. Well, that's certainly one way to put it. Dermot hurried to interject. What Meghan means is... But Meghan cut across him sharply. What I mean is exactly what I said. I don't need an interpreter, Dermot. The studio audience gasped again. Allison sat back, inhaling slowly, her hands gripping the edge of the sofa. For the first time in her long career, her signature patience was visibly thinning. Dermot glanced nervously at her, then at the cameras. Right, he said, clearing his throat. Well, we'll take a short break in just a moment. But first, Meghan, what do you hope people take away from your projects moving forward? Meghan's reply was instant, confident, and cutting. That truth has no expiration date, no matter how much institutions or morning shows try to bury it. The words landed like a hammer. Allison's smile vanished. The warmth in her eyes was gone. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and the spark that made her beloved by millions flickered into something sharper, colder. Dermot caught the look on her face and knew the storm was coming. When the show returned from the brief commercial break, the tension was still thick in the studio air. Dermot plastered on his best professional smile, but Allison's energy had shifted. The usual sparkle in her eyes was muted, replaced with something closer to calculation and frustration. Meghan, on the other hand, looked entirely unfazed, perched elegantly on the sofa as though she owned the room. Dermot leaned forward first, determined to steer things back on track. Now, Meghan, before the break, you spoke about truth, and your projects have always generated strong reactions, both positive and critical. How do you handle that kind of constant scrutiny? Meghan smirked with perspective. Criticism is often jealousy in disguise. People like to tear down what they don't understand. I've stopped caring about winning over the masses. If they can't rise to my level, that's their burden. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Allison gave a short, awkward laugh. Well, Meghan, not everyone at home sees it that way. Some just feel confused by the contradictions. For example, you've spoken against the monarchy harshly at times, but people also point out you've benefited enormously from your title, your connections, your visibility. Meghan's head snapped toward Allison. Her smile vanished, her tone icy. Benefited? You mean survived? Do you have any idea what it's like to be chewed up by a machine and spit out as a caricature of yourself? The monarchy didn't hand me anything. I built who I am. My platform is mine, not theirs. Allison's face tightened. But Meghan, with respect, your global recognition came because you married into the royal family. That's what gave you the stage you're standing on today. A few gasps escaped the audience. Dermot quickly interjected, his voice soothing. What Allison means is... But Meghan cut him off. No, I heard exactly what she meant, and it's insulting. My worth isn't defined by a family tree. I'm not some hanger-on clinging to borrowed fame. Allison's hands gripped her cards a little too firmly now. Yet, Meghan, you continue to speak about the royals at every opportunity. Isn't that still clinging? If you truly wanted to move on, why keep bringing them up? Meghan leaned back, her posture dripping arrogance. Because silence protects abusers, Allison. And if that makes people uncomfortable, then maybe they should examine their own complicity instead of questioning my choices. The air snapped tight. Even Dermot's practiced calm faltered. He shifted uneasily in his seat, trying to lighten things. Let's not forget Meghan's projects also focus on charity, on wellness, on giving back, he offered. But Allison wasn't smiling anymore. Her voice was sharper, her warmth gone. I don't question giving back, Meghan. I question the way you present yourself as a victim while living in luxury. People at home watching this are struggling with bills, with work, with reality. Do you understand how your words sound to them? Meghan blinked, almost in disbelief. Luxury? Are we seriously going to reduce my lived experience to the square footage of my home? That's beneath you. Allison's voice rose. The famous Hammond laugh was nowhere in sight. What's beneath me, Meghan, is the arrogance you've displayed since you sat down. Every question is an attack. Every criticism is jealousy. Maybe, just maybe, people are tired of being lectured by someone who claims she hates the crown, but gladly wore it when it suited her. The studio audience erupted in shocked murmurs. Dermot immediately raised his hands, his voice urgent. All right, let's all just... But Allison wasn't done. Her eyes flashed, her tone fierce. You talk about surviving the monarchy, Meghan, but the truth is, you used it. You used the platform, the spotlight, the global attention, and when it stopped serving you, you turned around and branded it toxic. You can't have it both ways. Meghan's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, she looked rattled. She straightened her blazer, eyes narrowing at Allison. I don't need to justify myself to morning show hosts. I've lived a truth bigger than this studio will ever understand. Allison leaned forward now, bending all pretense of bubbly professionalism. Truth or convenience? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've milked every ounce of fame that marriage gave you, and when people pushed back, you painted yourself as a martyr. That's not truth, Meghan, that's performance. The audience gasped audibly this time, some clapping, others stunned into silence. Dermot stood halfway from his chair, his palms outstretched. Let's calm down, please. We're live, and this isn't But Allison snapped back, not at Dermot, but at Meghan. Do you have any idea how offensive it is to sit here morning after morning talking to people who work hard for everything they have, while you sit there and sneer about being misunderstood, all while cashing in on the very system you despise? Enough is enough. The silence that followed was thunderous. Meghan crossed her arms tightly, her chin lifted high. Her voice when it came was cold steel. If the British public expected me to bow forever in gratitude for their scraps, they chose the wrong woman. I will never apologize for refusing to be silent. Not for you, not for anyone. Allison exhaled slowly, her voice trembling, but firm. Then maybe this interview should end right here, because I won't sit here and watch you sneer at every question, Meghan. This is this morning, not your personal soapbox. Dermot moved quickly, trying to salvage the wreck. Let's take another quick break. But the damage was already done. The audience knew it, the producers knew it, and Meghan knew it. The showdown was no longer simmering. It had boiled over, and the next part would decide who walked out of that studio intact and who didn't. The break was short, but it didn't cool the heat simmering on set. When the cameras came back live, Dermot O'Leary wore a strange smile, clearly trying to maintain control of a segment that had veered dangerously off script. Beside him, Allison Hammond sat upright, her shoulders squared, her eyes blazing with a mix of anger and resolve. Meghan Markle, poised as ever, leaned back in her seat with her arms crossed and her chin tilted defiantly, as though daring anyone to challenge her further. Dermot cleared his throat. Welcome back to This Morning. We've been having a very candid conversation with Meghan Markle about her projects and her experiences. Meghan, let's try to steer this towards something positive. You've spoken often about empowerment. What message would you like to leave with our viewers today? Meghan's lips curled into a thin smile, but her voice carried a sharp edge. The message is simple, Dermot. Stop expecting women like me to constantly explain ourselves. Stop demanding gratitude for circumstances that came with as much pain as privilege. I don't owe anyone my silence, least of all a television audience. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some clapped politely, others whispered. Allison exhaled, shaking her head slowly. Her patience had been stretched to its breaking point. Meghan, she began, her voice still calm but noticeably strained. No one here is demanding your silence, but the way you've handled yourself today, dismissing every question, belittling every challenge. It's not strength, it's arrogance. Meghan's eyebrows shot up. Arrogance? Allison, perhaps you should consider that my refusal to bow down to petty criticism is confidence, not arrogance. Maybe that's something you're not used to seeing in women like me. Gasps rippled through the audience. Allison froze for a moment, then leaned forward, her voice dropping to a lower, more dangerous register. Don't you dare, Meghan. Don't you twist this into some narrative about people being threatened by your strength. I've championed women my entire career. What I won't champion is rudeness, entitlement, and a complete lack of accountability. Dermot tried to interject, raising his hands. All right, but Allison's words thundered over him now, unstoppable. You say you hate the monarchy, Meghan. You say it suffocated you, that it destroyed you. But let's be real, you wouldn't be sitting on this sofa today if you hadn't married into it. You wouldn't have Netflix deals, book deals, or headlines. You used the crown when it suited you, then spat it out when it didn't. And now you sit here sneering at every question as though the world owes you something. The studio erupted in shocked gasps and murmurs. Meghan's face flushed crimson, her jaw tightening. How dare you suggest I used anyone? My marriage is about love, Allison. My life is my own. And if I've chosen to share parts of my truth with the world, that's my right. Allison leaned in, her voice fierce and unrelenting. Love? Then why does it always look like you're cashing in on your husband's name? Prince Harry, the man people actually respected before all of this circus, has been reduced to a sidekick in your brand. You talk about independence, yet every door you've walked through was opened by him. Admit it. You've leaned on his fame and you've milked it dry. The words hit like a hammer. The audience gasped louder than ever, some even applauding the bluntness. Dermot visibly panicked, trying to intervene. Okay, let's keep this professional. But Meghan snapped, her voice sharp as glass. I will not sit here and be accused of exploiting my own husband on national television. This is a disgraceful ambush. And frankly, Allison, it says more about you than it does about me. Allison didn't flinch. Her voice rose above Meghan's fury, clear and resolute. No, Meghan. It says everything about you. The truth is, you've strutted onto the set with nothing but condescension, mocking every question, acting like you're too important to be challenged. Well, let me tell you something. This is This Morning, not your personal PR machine, and I won't sit here and let you talk down to us or our audience for one more second. The audience burst into applause, some even standing. Meghan's mouth opened as though to deliver a final retort, but Allison cut her off with a hand raised. Enough. This interview is over. You've shown exactly who you are, and this program will not continue to give you a platform for this arrogance. Meghan stood abruptly, yanking off her microphone. The wire snagged for a moment before she tore it free, her movement sharp and furious. She looked down at Allison, her voice trembling with rage. "You'll regret this. The world will see how you treated me today." Allison's reply was firm and final. "The world just saw exactly how you treated yourself, Meghan. Don't blame me for that." With that, Meghan spun on her heel and stormed off the set, her heels clacking like gunshots against the floor. The studio doors swung shut behind her, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Dermot sat frozen, glancing between Allison and the cameras. Allison took a deep breath, then faced the audience, her expression softening with genuine regret. To everyone watching at home, I want to apologize for what just happened. That wasn't the interview we planned, and it certainly wasn't the tone we wanted, but sometimes live television shows people as they truly are, and today we all saw it. The audience erupted into applause, this time for Allison. Dermot nodded solemnly. "We'll be back after the break." The cameras faded to black, but the clip would not. By the afternoon, social media would be ablaze with hashtags, headlines, and debates, and Meghan Markle's disastrous appearance on This Morning would go down as one of the most shocking live television moments in British history.